No, you weren't here.
We'd probably be.
It was last year.
It was last year, and it was
Here's
some
some.
PTSD.
no PTSD.
What?
Post-traumatic toilet disorder.
Okay,
What?
there we go. They're referring to wonderful event from last year. Okay, all right, let's go and let's get some stuff done. I want to, y'all, I wanted to go over, I wrote a couple notes because I want to go over a couple points before we start. So, well, actually, let me give you, I have one shoe off. Hold on. Let me give you guys a piece of notebook paper. I want you to take a couple notes on some kind of unrelated stuff. And then I want you to be able to have it for later. So you can put this, like, I don't care, in the back of your binder, in the front, or whatever. It's just some reminders. And if you write with your hands while we're talking, you're probably more likely to remember it. So,
Right with your hand.
as opposed to with your toes, which I've seen some people do. It's pretty daggone amazing. Have you ever seen this people write with their toes?
Yeah, I can make
I tried it one time. I can't do it.
No,
Stop, please.
Okay, this is Demogorgon at 11.
Was it fun?
11? Yes.
There you go. Well, then
There's just 11
and I
family.
made it worthwhile. All right.
Oh, she misspelled it.
She didn't misspell it.
11?
I just spelled science. What?
11.
11 still spelled wrong.
11?
I didn't
thought
hear
it was
that.
Elvin. I
No.
don't know, man.
It's 11.
11.
Like the number.
Right.
All right.
No, not the song.
Okay. Y'all good? All right. So take a little sheet of paper I just gave you and write some notes. So first things first.
Okay.
This is completely unrelated, but related, if that's possible. Last year we made like a class contract for how we were going to interact with each other. So I don't know if we need to do that again this year. If we do, we can, but I just wanted to give an overall statement that we need to set a tone of positivity, encouragement, cooperation, that kind of thing. I don't treat people like little snowflake people. Y'all know that. But at the same time, I mean, I don't like pander to anybody or pamper anybody or whatever. But yeah. But at the same time, there's no need to be ugly or even tease if you're not sure. Sometimes you got somebody you think they're a great friend and you poke fun at them in a way that you think you can, but you crossed a line you didn't know you crossed. So especially when it comes to people's abilities academically, y'all listening? So I want you to know that, like, don't. There's a lot of different reasons people homeschool, and you guys know that, you know, sometimes it's religious, it's cultural, it's academic, but there are definitely a lot of people within our group here, our community here, that are homeschooling for academic reasons or social reasons or emotional reasons, and we don't ever want to imply that somebody's not as smart or not as capable or whatever, okay? Because that has happened, and I'm sure it was like a joke, but it hurts people's feelings. So we're not gonna do that. Like, just don't call each other dumb or whatever, okay?
You're lecturing me in front of the whole class.
Not talking about you, actually. So,
Oh, really?
but if you're guilty, then you're guilty. So anyway, everybody hear that? So don't, okay? Because some people get really upset about it, and they should. All right. So that's item number one. I want to set a tone. Michael, I want to set a tone that we're always encouraging and positive, okay? And it's good to be friends and it's good to joke around, but keep it positive, all right? Now, second thing I want to bring up. We talked briefly about field trips, and so this is like a semi-field trip opportunity, but the coming fall festival, the big fair, is about to start. So, and write this on this piece of paper, Sunday, the October 6th at 3:30 p.m. I'll be there. I am not supervising you. If you're going to come with adults, then they're going to supervise you. If you're going to come by yourselves, you're on your own. I'm not responsible for you. But if you
October 30th. Sorry.
it's October 6th.
No,
But if you want to come by yourself, with your family, with your friends, whatever, that's cool. And I think what we can do is, while we're there, we can hang out together or meet up every so often. But it would be fun to look for some of the examples of the stuff. Hold on. Look for some of the examples of the stuff we're studying right there in the rides. Like, you'll see Newton's first law and second law, and that's kind of cool to point it out. Yes?
Is that the same time?
It's after. Well, since you brought it up,
No,
Cole and
no,
Drew
no,
will be there at 2
no.
p.m. doing their gymnastics performance for the city at 2 o'clock on the center stage.
So fast.
I don't want to do that. It's not fun.
Yeah, well, you know,
There's nothing you can do there either. It's like a wooden stage and everything hurts.
yeah. So basically, it's tumbling and pommel mushroom. Goodbye, Jack.
so
Thank you,
bad.
hon. So
We
anyway,
went so red so fast.
Cole is famous for getting red fast.
Don't worry, I'm not going.
hmm So
I'm still gonna be recovering from a state I'm going to this weekend.
anyway,
Fortunately, to go to-
What traumatic experience?
I did not
have you
consent
had?
to that.
you didn't consent to that.
No.
Are you embarrassed?
A little bit.
You don't want your friends
Look at
to
the
see
redness at
you?
the face. You can obviously tell he's embarrassed.
He doesn't want his friends to watch him.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway.
No, I'm fine with them watching me tumble. I don't care if they watch me tumble. It's just I don't like doing it there. Because everything hurts.
Yeah.
I can't do anything cool.
That's true. It's a hard stage, and he can't do anything cool. So
No,
believe me,
no.
if you
On
see
the
him
hard
do-
stage.
if you see him do anything
I'm
at the
hard.
fairgrounds,
It's
he's way better at the gym. So that they do bring mats, but the mats are like 1.5 inches thick, and then it's this wooden stage underneath.
Matt,
So
is
there's-
that like a bug?
Really not no. So
What?
there's
No.
really not a lot
No, it's
to
not.
do. All right, moving on from the fair.
Biffing hair mat. My bad.
No,
No, that's not a bug either.
still not in.
What are you?
Gnats.
Watching
He's
it.
thinking of
Not.
He's thinking of gnats.
Still not in.
Matt.
Uh,
Thinking of gnats.
I know.
Oh.
All right, so can we move past hair bugs? All right,
Go ahead.
hush, Cole. So that's the October 6th at 3:30. You want to come? I'll be there. Bring money. It's fun. All right. Speaking
Gift
of
to you.
no, you do yourself. Speaking of October, October's weird because there is the fall break for the county, which
This
is
next week.
yes, it's I believe it's the first starts the October 1st, and that's when Miss Jackie will not be here. She's on vacation, so there's no Spanish that day. So basically, y'all get to scoot out early, right? All right, and then we have a week after that, which is what? Oh,
My ride's not here yet.
Okay.
So can I just?
of course, yeah, of course,
No.
honey. So, no, you can't stay,
You may
Jack.
not stay.
We don't like you. No. Anyway,
Oh.
anyway.
I remember the old days when I.
We have no Miss Jackie. Then we have class anyway though, and then we have one more week where we have class, and then we have 2 weeks, the 15th and the 22nd, where we are not meeting because my family's on vacation, and your lessons will be online. One of them is an online lesson.
15th and the 27th.
Yep, and it's in your syllabus. One of them is an online lesson, and the other one is a first quarter exam.
Mhm.
The whole first quarter.
No
Now.
no Spanish.
I have, no
No
Spanish on, well, I don't know what Miss Jackie's going to do about that. Well, I'll talk to her, but I'm assuming no Spanish. Maybe she'll want to meet y'all someplace else. I don't know. That's up to her. But as far as that class is concerned, the one that is the quarter exam,
Mhm.
there is provided for you a review that's set up like a Jeopardy board. You go online, it's all there. I put the whole thing online, you click it. You're supposed to be able, like if you're with a live group, you could do it and keep score and make it a competition, but that's kind of hard to do if you're doing it by yourself. But still, you can play yourself. You
Play
can
against
score
yourself.
it, or you can just do it like flashcards,
Or
and it works
literally
the same
playing
way.
yourself.
Yeah. So we're gonna leave that there. All right. So that's coming up. Also, before I leave on vacation, you will have your next 9 weeks binder stuff given to you. I've already done through lesson 12. So I have 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 left to do because 18 is bye.
Adios.
18 is our Christmas party / movie day. Right?
Ooh.
So that's the last, I'll tell you
What
exactly
movie?
what it is. We're doing October Sky.
Oh.
That
that's
is
October Sky.
the 17th, Shannon. No, yes, the 17th. So,
December 17th?
December
Or
17th.
be like a
Yep.
transcript of his class online or something, or just like get some notes of all this
So-
stuff.
All this is on your
Is it
syllabus.
here?
Make sure to
What,
email it
October
to
Sky?
us later.
Yeah. It's all here. You'll get all of it. Don't worry. You'll get
Email?
You'll get all of it. I'm just telling you now so that you're hearing it because I know some of you don't check your email. Yeah. And of course, it'll all be in a grade book. You know, it's all in Teacheries where you can access.
No.
All right, last week's grades I'm still working on because I had to go back and change, guys, I had to go back and change some things. I don't know what happened, but mysteriously lesson 3, there were 4 questions for lesson 3 that somehow reset everyone's answers weeks after. And Sydney caught it because she's like, hey, my grade changed. What happened? I looked and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're not the only one. It did it for almost everybody. So I had to go back in and correct them. So that took some extra time. So if you didn't do your test until last night or this morning, it's not graded yet. But I will make sure it gets done.
Right.
All right. And then last but not least, it's almost October. And that means Tinker Day is approaching. Okay. So for those of you who don't know Tinker Day, it's the best holiday in the world.
I got sick on
No.
Thursday. I was so mad.
Debatable.
Mr. Tinker Day.
I got like a 1-day cold, and then the next day I was perfectly fine, and I missed ones out.
We had donuts.
Yeah, I know. I heard.
It's because you're not a Hollins girl.
You
You had to do school at
So-
your house. What?
What?
So Tinker Day is a holiday that it's a holiday that my college celebrates, that Holland celebrates, and it's really fun. And it's been going on for like 150 years or something. But basically, what they do is
Year battle.
they cancel school for the whole day, and you know it because you wake up to the bell ringing in chapel, and then you walk down to the cafeteria in your jammies, and you eat Krispy Kreme donuts. Then you put on weird clothes, you hike up a mountain, sing songs, eat fried chicken. I know, because it's the best college in the world. And then you come back down, and it's amazing.
I've never heard of this.
We don't know what it is. It's a surprise every year. You don't know when it's going to happen. If you're on campus, you wake up to the bells ringing, and if you've since left campus, you get emails and Facebook alerts, and all your friends start texting you at 6 in the morning. So I got to ring the bell singing meter. It's the best thing ever. But it's super awesome because my phone will start going off at like 7:30 if it's Tinker Day. So we don't know what it is. It will be one random day in October. It may occur while I'm gone. If it occurs while I'm gone, we'll have donuts when I get back. If it occurs while we're here, we'll have donuts on Tinker Day because that's what we do, right?
What was on Tuesday?
Well, then we'll have donuts anyway. Maybe if I feel like it. If you're decent people.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's roll. I want to roll through this lesson, and then I want to take you out to the car because last week we looked at the car.
It works now.
Yes, it does. We did it. We actually did it. We flipped the fan, which meant we had to take the radiator out. And we did all of that ourselves, and I was underneath the car.
We almost died though because we were driving like 34
that's
miles
a
an hour
new
down
problem.
Southers Road, and there's no like street lamps or anything, and it was doing great. And then like all the headlights went out, and it was just pitch black.
So we've discovered the cause of that too. I think now I need to look into it. But so the headlight switch, which is on the dashboard, that controls the headlights, taillights, and the dashboard lights. You know, when you turn on the lights in a car, the interior ones come on too, right?
Yeah.
So that switch does all these things, and these are all the things that go out. And the car is now fitted with halogen lamps because that's what's available. But in 1965, there weren't halogen lamps. There were just regular incandescent bulbs.
So it's not
Takes too
used,
much power.
It's pulling too much. So what happens is the switch overheats, and when the switch overheats, it cuts off. So everything goes black. So that is what
The fog lights don't
think.
go.
The fog lights are on a completely different system. So because they were on a completely different system, they were not affected.
We didn't die.
So I think, we didn't die because of the fog lights. But I think that I think it's the problem with the switch. But the only way for me to find out is to let it happen, and then climb up under the dashboard and stick my hand on it. And if it's warm, then I know I have a problem. And then there's a couple different ways to solve it. But anyway, we did flip the fan, and then we took it out for a ride to see how it did. It was doing so much better. And we cruised around the neighborhood, and I was doing the fog lights on and off because the other thing we did was adjust the headlights because one, it was like this. So we adjusted the headlights, we flipped the fog lights, like we did all this work. We were all greasy, smelly. So we were driving around, and we were driving down Southers over here by the bridge.
Right past the bridge, like the scariest.
Right,
part,
yeah,
so.
it's kind of a creepy piece of road. And we were, and I was like, this is great. I had my high beams on, and I was really trying to rev the car a bit so I could see how the engine did with the fan flip. So I'm like, around this curve, and then it's like, boom, everything was black.
Except
I
for
didn't have the fogs on.
radio
Our little radio, which is on a different system, the little screen from the radio was lit up, but it was pitch black around us in the car. So I just stepped on the brake really hard and laid on the horn in case somebody was coming around the corner. And then I was like, oh my gosh. So I turned the fog lights on, and we could see.
She sat there like click the light for like a minute.
Yeah, I did. I was like, I was clicking my high beam on the floor, like, oh my gosh, we're gonna die. It was a little scary, but we survived.
You are gonna die. You are dead.
Thank God nobody was coming around there. I was less concerned about a person than a tree because I could see the headlights of another car coming.
Keep in mind the river's right down that hill.
Yeah, we could have just, smushed a tree.
You just.
So anyway, once we fixed that, but she's perfectly safe in the daytime. All right, so let's go ahead and look at lesson 7. Everybody have your notes out. Get your notes out if you don't have them out. Let's go over that.
I need that.
What?
So she's fine in the daytime, but she's risky at night, a little bit dangerous. You know,
Yeah. He said frisky.
Don't say frisky.
she's ready to mingle at night time. You know what I
That's even
mean?
worse.
Oh my goodness, Henry. All right. All right, so as Michael illuminated when we began lab, a force is a push or a pull on an object. So we're going to demonstrate one real quick. I borrowed this car. Well, I didn't borrow. I sort of absconded with this car that's Drew's. And
Toy car.
it's a little toy car.
Drew plays with toy cars.
Yes,
That's why he
Of course he
plays
does.
Fortnite.
they're amazing.
No, he hasn't played
Left his
Fortnite in a
binder
while.
too. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to turn the computer around so that stop sharing, so that Kai, if she watches from home, can see this or whatever.
Hi, Kai.
Actually, let me do it this way first.
She's no.
Turn it back in a minute.
No, I'm pushing me.
All right, so here we go. Here's our book. All right, so here's the car. Y'all watching the car? I'm gonna do it on this side first. Then I'm gonna turn it around so you guys can see it on that side. This is Savannah's binder. All right. So this car kind of has a good, I don't know, it looks like lights, a light bar on the roof. So we're gonna run it backwards. All right. So what I have to be careful of doing is I don't want to push the car too hard because then these just fall off. But I'm gonna stack them on the roof, and I'm going to push the car into the book, and I want y'all to hypothesize what's gonna happen with the penny.
Doesn't that car have treads? So it's not gonna roll in this very
It
well.
rolls. What do you think?
Okay.
If I'm rolling backwards, like you're gonna hit it and take it roll.
Anybody
Depending
wanna
on
guess?
the
The
speed,
pennies are
They're
gonna
gonna
go
fall
towards
off
the.
before they-
depending on the
Yeah,
speed,
exactly.
try
Yeah.
to crash in, depending if you fly forward
Okay.
or just like do
That
nothing.
sounds hot.
So do we all think they're gonna move?
I think you're gonna slide
Yeah.
forward.
They're going to go forward.
Yeah.
They're going to go backward, forward, sideways. Okay, so we're going to go gently because I have to get it to kind of. Whoops, hang on, that was too gently.
They moved.
They moved, yeah.
Get down.
Which way did they go?
Backwards.
Backwards.
No, they went backwards. They went towards the book. So going
Yeah,
towards the book
inside.
would be in the same direction of the car. That's
Forward.
forward. Ready? Watch again.
The job.
Where'd they go?
Forward.
The game's
Forward.
closed.
Okay. You guys watch.
They went forward.
Okay. Can you see, Henry, or is my computer blocking your view?
I can see.
Can you see, Aaron?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, it's always recording every week.
Just watching something
Let me
else.
see. Hey, are we watching?
Yep.
Where'd they go?
Forward.
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 One more time.
You just measure how fast they
There they go again. Like, all right, when you're in a car, Cole, Michael, stop chatting. When you're in a car,
No, it's something else.
whatever,
He has that.
and somebody hits the brakes, what happens to you?
You
die.
You go which way?
Forward.
You go forward.
You break your head.
Right. Okay. You go forward is
Why do
the
you always
idea.
go to the most violent option?
That's actually
So,
dislocate your eye.
Your eye?
so we're gonna,
Dislocate your eye?
guys. So we're gonna talk about why that happened, but that's one of Newton's laws right there. Newton. So a force can cause a resting object to move, or it can accelerate a moving object by changing the object's speed or direction. So if my resting object begins to move, you know a force has been applied, right? If my moving object accelerates, or if my moving object changes direction, a force has been applied, right? Everybody following? Okay. So what unit do we use to measure force?
Newton.
Newtons. Okay, so who's Newton?
Isaac
Isaac, Sir Isaac Newton. Anybody know where he is now? Yeah, he is very much dead, but do you know where he is? He's in Westminster.
Maybe though.
Mhm. He's in West. No, he's in Westminster. He's buried.
He's in a grave, Danny.
He's in tune. No, he's in tune to Westminster. So there's like a legend about Newton having an apple fall on his head and being like, oh yeah, and no, that's not really it. But he did come up with some of the, dude, you have got to clip that slide. So he did come up with a lot of laws of physics that are really helpful in explaining why the world around us behaves the way it does. So it's good that we name force Newtons, you know. So a Newton, yeah. A Newton is the amount of.
Not anymore. He's dead now.
A Newton is the amount of
We're
force.
trying to learn.
A Newton.
Get out.
A Newton is the amount of force that causes 1 kilogram mass to accelerate at 1 meter per second. So that's how we measure it. And you can see that, 1 Newton equals 1 kilogram times meters divided by seconds squared, right? Everybody sees that? All right. So representing force. So how do we represent force when we're showing it scientifically?
An arrow.
With an arrow, okay. And that represents the direction. And what else does it represent?
The magnitude of the force depending on how long it is.
Right. So it can be, sometimes they make thicker arrows. Sometimes they make thinner or longer arrows. The one that the juniors had, I'll show you real quick, in their book, I thought kind of made a little more obvious, because they had the thick one as one of their options instead of just the longer one. It was actually wider, and that you can really kind of see that too. Let me show you. I'll show you their graphic. Okay, so see their graphic right here on this side.
No.
I'll bring it around.
Yes, I
That-
see it.
That's easier to see too, I think, sometimes. All right, so poor Ethan is just trying to stay awake. Am I boring you? Am I boring you, Ethan?
No.
All right, so yeah, there you go. So arrows represent direction and magnitude. Ooh, what does that sound like? Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Uh-huh. All right, so combining forces. So forces in what direction are added together? The same. And then what do you do with forces in opposite directions? You subtract them. Okay. So this comes to the concept of a net force, which is the overall force acting on an object. All right, so there's the word net. Have you heard it before in another context? Any other context? No.
Net, like fishing net?
As
Total.
in net and gross.
Net income.
Okay, yeah, net income. All right, so here's the example. If you get a job and you make $300,000 a year, that's your salary,
I'd be
okay?
rich.
That's, stop interrupting. That would be your gross income. And then after you've paid your unemployment, your Medicare tax, your disability, your taxes, and everything else, you take home $180,000. That's your net. Okay? So the net force is basically, it's a difference. It's a subtraction problem. So the net force is the overall force, or it can be an addition problem. It can be the overall force acting on an object. So when forces are balanced, what is the net force? Your forces are balanced.
Zero.
Zero. Good. Okay. Now here's what I want you to envision. All right. You have a semi-truck right here. This is the semi-truck. And you have a smart car. Okay?
Yay.
They're both traveling at exactly the same speed. And it's a constant speed. They're both going 45. All right? And they smack straight into each other.
Oh, wow.
What is going to happen?
The smart car is going to get smooshed.
Yeah.
It's going to get smushed, but what else is going to happen?
They're both gonna get. They're gonna stop.
Are they going to come right here and stop?
They're gonna bounce.
They could bounce, okay. But what else could happen? This is a semi-truck. This is a smart car. This is a semi-truck loaded with cinder blocks.
That one would run the smart car over.
The semi-truck, okay, first off, the semi-truck's going to be harder to stop, which we'll talk about when we get to momentum. But aside from that, which side has greater force? The semi. Why? Because it has more what? Mass. Okay, so you have these two things coming together. They are not going to stop. This one's going to hit this one, and then what's going to happen?
So keep going.
It's going to go that way. Now, there may be a little bounce, but this one's going to go, It's like playing pool. You know, if you've ever played billiards and you shoot the cue ball into your ball, you've hit the cue ball with a lot of force, and that one will stop because they're the same mass. It'll stop, transfer that force to the next ball, and it moves. Whereas this truck is not the same mass, and it's just gonna
do braking.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, they do.
What if you just want to run the smart car over? Okay, dude.
Yeah, when I first moved to Georgia, I got stuck on the highway one day in a terrible accident like that. But because the car was stopped and not moving, and it was in a line of cars trying to exit, it couldn't go too far forward, but this one had momentum and it was still going, and it ran over the car. And it was terrible because they shut down the whole highway, and that car had a whole family in it that had come from Haiti, and they were like some kind of refugee situation. Like I think that was there wasn't a hurricane that year, but there was some bad stuff. I don't remember what it was, and they had come for help to be with family, and they were under. When I drove by, you could see semi-wheel, car wheel, semi-wheel. It was completely under the trailer because there was nowhere for this one to go. So this one just kept going, and it could only go forward but so far before it just went right up. It was horrible, but you can see how, it's really hard to stop that kind of momentum, and it just ran right up over it. So when your forces are balanced, your net force is 0, and there's no change in the object's motion. When you get unbalanced forces that act on an object, like we were just demonstrating, the object accelerates. So if you get your unbalanced forces here, this one's going to accelerate just in the other direction, right? So it can be produced by forces in the same direction or in opposite directions. So what if they were like this, same direction? They're both traveling, but this one's coming faster and heavier. It's still going to push it forward, right? Okay. No, we're there. All right.
What was
So
the blank next to unbalanced?
the blank next to unbalanced forces. Unbalanced, when an unbalanced force acts?
It's 3.
Oh yeah, what was that?
3.
Yeah.
Versus blank.
Oh, you have a blank?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just right there.
Brownie
yeah.
Oh
point.
yeah, that's
Oh, no, that's just accidentally stuck a
Brownie
blank there. Yeah, that's a brownie point.
Yeah.
You're gonna add one
Also
in.
on
Unbalanced
on like lab 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
You said it was like
Did anyone get the
Yeah.
E1
So-
projectile motion,
No.
bend motion of
Oh, you found one there?
object? Yeah. Bend
Okay.
motion.
There's another. All right, so let's look back where we were. So friction, let's talk about friction. So friction is a force that opposes the motion of objects as they move past each other. All right, so I'm gonna borrow Savannah's binder for a minute, okay? And I'm gonna stick it like that. Here's a penny. Why isn't it sliding down the binder?
because of friction.
Because of
static
friction.
friction.
Yes, static friction. So static friction is the force that acts on objects that are not moving. So if I put that at a nice little slope like that, and if I can even demonstrate it like somewhere around in here, it's still
I
good.
want it to
It's
fall.
still good. Whoop, there it goes.
Come on, don't catch
And
it.
you can take advantage of static friction with we take advantage of it with our tires on cars. If you look at how they're shaped, we take advantage of it with our sneakers, right? We have tread on sneakers, and if you're walking down a steep slope outside, like a hill on a street that's been paved, if you didn't have on, and it was a steep enough one, if you didn't have sneakers with tread, if you had slippery shoes, where are you going? Yeah, it's like sledding when you don't need to go sledding and there's no snow at the bottom, right? Right. So there's that. And then also, if you've ever looked at a close up of a gecko's foot, that's a great example. Have you ever looked at a gecko's
They use
foot?
electromagnets.
So they have really cool. Let me see. I'll pull one up for you. So gecko's feet.
I remember a few years ago when it snowed, I wanted to go out on the trampoline, but it was too cold and I couldn't wear shoes on the trampoline. So I put on 2 pairs of socks and then like rubber
Yeah, that
banded
didn't work.
Ziploc bags to my feet. And then I tried to walk back up the hill and just kept slipping.
So
I
here's
go down the
here's what a gecko's foot looks like up close. You ever seen them crawl up the glass and stuff? Don't you have a gecko? Well, what, yeah, you have a gecko at your house.
Yeah, but did you know they like one of the colleges somewhere made gecko gloves, so now people can actually like.
They have the gecko grips at gym. One of the gymnastics companies
Never
are
heard
called
of
Gecko Grips, and it's the grips. You haven't seen them? They were at
No.
state. You weren't paying attention at
No.
state. You were too busy competing. I was looking for things to do because I was bored. Sorry, you were not that excited. He's only out. That's the thing. A gym meet is 4 hours long, and your kid gets up, and if it's floor, they might be up for 45 seconds. But if it's vault,
No.
5 seconds, and it's over, and you're like, oh, now I have nothing to do for the next hour before the next event. It's really, it gets old. So we got static friction, which we just talked about. Then we have sliding friction. So that is a force that opposes the direction of motion of an object as it slides over a surface. So that's when you do this, and you can feel the friction as heat, because that's what's opposing it, right? The friction is opposing the motion of one hand towards the other. Then you have rolling friction. So rolling friction obviously acts on rolling objects and causes a slight distortion in the shape of the object and the surface. So when we were rolling the steel ball down the Hot Wheels track today, tiny, 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 though you couldn't see it, there was a distortion of the ball and the track. In our case, more likely a larger distortion in the track because it's a softer material, more malleable material. And an easy way to think about this is, imagine your steel ball, okay, and you've got a slope, and the slope has a blanket on it. Envision how the ball would roll down the blanket, and would it kind of squish it? Okay, now imagine that you're rolling it through snow. Would it leave a trail? Or sand, it would leave a trail because it's distorting the surface. How about if you put it on a sheet of glass? A much more rigid material, it's going to roll, and the more it distorts, the more friction it produces. So a ball rolling through the snow or the sand is going to have more friction than a ball rolling across a plate of glass.
Surface friction.
Correct, because it's wrapping. Yep.
Instead of just one point right here, like at the corner, it's half of the.
Yeah, it's wrapping. It's cupping the ball as it goes down, and it's wrapping it. So fluid friction opposes the motion of an object through a fluid. And, you know, if you've ever been in a pool and you're trying to you get that water resistance, we also have air resistance. So water resistance and air resistance would be examples of fluid friction. And that's why cars that are meant to race are more aerodynamic, right? You don't want a car with like a big boxy front end trying to plow through the air. You want something that's angled, narrow, right? People with the tabbing and the fidgeting. So, here's another example.
Right.
Have you ever seen a spoiler on a car?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, what's the purpose of the spoiler on a car?
There is
Push the back end down. Right?
Yeah,
So the
so
tire somewhere?
you got the spoiler like this. The air comes, and as it goes up, it puts pressure there, pushes the back end down, so you
So
get
if you have a
more
rear-wheel drive
friction.
vehicle, it gives you more friction and more.
Yes, so if you've got
We're
a
supposed to ruin the movie for you.
that's a different kind of spoiler. So this kind of spoiler a spoiler on a car will push the rear end down. You get more friction, better handling if you got a rear wheel drive car, right?
Mine's having a spoiler in the front of your car. Like,
That would be dumb.
no, some people have them though. Yeah, if you have front wheel drive,
Dumb mix. Yeah,
you
well,
would literally
true.
just
It'd be hard to see.
no. If you have front wheel drive, you
Front wheel drive cars are very different from rear wheel drive cars when it comes to things like getting out of slippery situations, like mud or snow or ice. That's all different. And then most cars now, if your parents have a newer car, there's probably something in it that's like a traction control that stays on automatically. And what it does is if one tire slips or starts to slip, it catches the other so that you don't do this weird skiddy thing. But you have to turn it off if you're stuck somewhere, because you may just want one tire to spin, because then at least you can get some traction. And so there's all kinds of things that are different from driving like a new car compared to Maxine out here, which is a totally different ball game. She's like a whole different ball game.
Wait, if your car a woman? Or?
This is a car that her name's Maxine.
Spanish class.
It hasn't been pointed
Yes.
out here yet.
Yep. All right, so
Spanish
there, I gave you 4 pictures there. There's sliding friction, you got the hockey player. Static friction, you got the little block on the ramp or the wedge. Fluid friction, I guess that's air resistance in that picture. That's what it looks like to me. And then rolling friction, you got the skateboarder. Okay, so gravity. Right. So gravity is the force that does what? What does gravity do?
Pushes down on things on its or.
That's what Earth's gravity does. So what does gravity in general do?
Pull stuff down.
Pull stuff toward it.
Yeah, pulls things toward each other. Pulls any two masses together. So this pencil and this pencil have gravity between them, and they are being pulled together. Yep, it doesn't matter. It could be floating in the air. Now I have a video for you guys that I believe I put in the lesson 10, which is the one you're doing without me. And it's really interesting because what this guy, are y'all paying attention? What this guy does is he stretches out, it's like what's the word I want? Can't remember the name of that material. What's the stuff that like bathing suits and leotards are made out of?
Elastic.
It's an it's like a poly. It's a stretchy thing, okay? And he stretches it out over this ring, and he will drop a ball in the middle of it, and he will spin balls around in it, and it's fascinating because it really is. You can actually see gravity working. He'll take it's a larger, it's like our steel balls. It's like a larger one and a smaller one, and he'll throw them in, and they start going round and round, and you will see them like get stuck together and then keep going. It helps you visualize all this stuff. My gosh, your head is always in the gutter, and it's just sad.
Nicole,
It's just
how good are you?
You're on me too.
Yeah, I am.
That was.
so Earth's gravity, as Michael pointed out, acts in what kind of direction?
Towards the
Downward. Yeah. Everything here and within our atmosphere is being pulled towards the center of the Earth, but we're also all being pulled towards everything else.
Is
right?
there like a millicentimeter in the middle of the core that has weight pushing down at all points?
Yeah, there would be. At the very, very center. So we would be super, super, super dense, right? But this is like,
So I'm currently being pulled towards you.
yes, absolutely.
Where are you going with that?
It's into there. Get into there.
Yeah.
In the conversation.
Come on.
Yep.
So it's like Drew and I were talking about dense. Drew and I were talking last night about the universe expanding. Oh, go ahead.
If everything's getting pulled towards like everything, where's that one point that everything's getting pulled towards to?
Isn't
Okay, you're
that a good
asking too
question?
many philosophical questions. My head
Isn't
is
that a
hurting.
good question?
I know, Aaron. What is the answer?
Here it's not about here it's not about where everything is being pulled to as one center point. It's about things with more mass pulling with there's greater gravity than things with more mass. So the bottle and the cap, this is getting pulled towards the bottle it's more strongly than the bottle is getting pulled towards the cap, though they're both being pulled together, if that makes any sense. But that's how everything
My bottle
works.
might be heavier than yours.
Now we can take
Is
away.
it a competition?
Yeah.
If everything's being pulled together, then why isn't anything
Just
like
fold it.
moving? Like what?
Oh, because it has to overcome the friction and also the gravity pulling it down and all the other things. So all these forces are acting simultaneously, but it's usually whichever force is greatest that you're witnessing. So like right now with the book and the cup of markers, okay? The book's got greater mass, so it's pulling on the cup of markers harder than the cup of markers is pulling on the book, but they're pulling together.
Why am
But
I not
the-
seeing the
but
cup
the-
of markers moving?
Well, I just answered that for her. So listen, I'm saying it again though. The overwhelming force that we're seeing here is that they're sitting on the table, right? They're being pulled to the table and that's being pulled to the ground. And that is stronger because Earth is way bigger than the markers of the book. So the force of gravity on the markers and the book from Earth is far greater than the markers on the book between the two of them. So it's everything's happening at once, but it's the biggest, strongest, greatest magnitude that you see. That's what you observe. But this is like, so Drew and I were talking about this last night, I was going to say. So we were talking about space and space expanding, right? And the universe expanding. And I was telling him, we talked about Hubble's law and how we know that there was a bang from what we can see as far as red shifts and blue shifts and things spreading, right? And he was saying to me, well, the universe could, of course, expand, but the space isn't expanding. And I'm like, no, it is. That's the thing. The space is expanding and the universe is expanding. But what's crazy is how big did they believe it was before it became everything we know?
Very
I mean, what would be at the end of all that space, though?
right? And is there in
A
it?
giant ball.
But what
Truman
they-
Show.
What scientists hypothesize based on the force of the spreading of the universe in space and the constant growing is that everything exploded from something smaller than an atom. So
Wow.
you're talking about every bit of matter in the entire universe coming from something as small as an atom, which occurred before the laws of physics were established, before time and space was established. So for those of you that have like a God question, there's your God question. You know, where did that? So then that's what they can't answer. And that's what I was telling him last night. I was like, science knows a lot, but you get to a point where you're like, we don't know. And that's kind of where they are with that. They're like, well, there was this little tiny thing and there was no space and there was no time and there was all the matter in the universe was like this. And then suddenly everything's here.
Well,
But they can't tell you why. And it's a fascinating thing to really think about it. Like if there were no laws of physics, then how did it do what it did?
Alien.
Right? Aliens. Oh my gosh, it's always the aliens, right?
Alien.
Can't black holes.
So we all existed, all of us in
To
this
bend
room.
it. Yeah, they bend it. It's,
Man.
I can't wrap my head around that whole thing. All right, so Earth's gravity acts downward towards the center of Earth, falling objects. All right, now this is what we did in lab. What does gravity cause objects to do?
accelerate downward.
Accelerate downward, right. And whereas air resistance acts in the direction opposite to the motion and reduces acceleration. So last week I did the snowflake. Didn't I do a snowflake and a hail
Yeah.
pellet? So
Come with
the
that
snowflake
line.
that's coming down like this has to fight the air resistance. It's still accelerating downward, whereas the hail pellet is just going to go, right? It doesn't have to fight anywhere near as much air resistance because it's big and wide. So if you are jumping out of an airplane, what do you want to have if you want to survive?
Parachute.
A parachute. What does the parachute do for you?
It catches the air.
Air resistance.
Yeah, air resistance. It's huge, right? It's this big thing. It catches the air, creates a lot of air resistance so that you glide down instead of, plummet to your certain death and exploding. Yeah, kaboom, right? I mean, so that's the benefit of something like a parachute. Have you ever seen the squirrel suits?
Oh yeah.
Those are freaking cool.
That sounds like so much fun.
So there's a video. There's a video of a guy doing that, and he goes, it's like they put the camera on him, like the GoPro thing, and you can see just how fast he's moving. And then there was the one that your daddy showed me.
One where the guy goes through the
He was
hole.
trying to
the
go.
mountain?
This guy goes through the hole in the mountain. There was another guy. He was trying to go through, over a bridge. And did you see this one? He was trying to go over a bridge, and he didn't have it quite enough height. So, his feet clipped it, and then it was it was terrifying because he didn't quite have it. But those squirrel suits, when they open them up,
People who do them off the Dubai Tower. Or,
Yeah.
with-
you get all this air resistance.
That sounds
I'm
very
a parachute.
other
So
birds.
when you want to do, so air resistance, air is a fluid. All right, we're going to be talking about fluids in a couple weeks too. Air is a fluid and water is a fluid. So if you want to make the smallest splash, how do you jump off a diving board?
Use your
Usually-
arms.
Mhm.
And so you have
Pencil.
to.
Yeah, like pencil. Okay, so when you do that, you're reducing your air resistance and your fluid resistance because you've reduced what? What did we reduce when we effectively made ourselves narrow? Think about the surface.
Surface tension.
Surface area. You've reduced your surface area to something really narrow. So the part of surface tension that you have to break is only as big as your feet, right? But if you wanted to make a huge splash and you didn't want to come up with a red stomach and be screaming, cannonball. Because when you go in like a cannonball, not only are you increasing your surface area because it's your, your rear end and your feet and whatever else are going in, but also you've condensed your mass into something that's going to hit all at once. If you want to make the biggest splash, yeah, like the Kool-Aid man, y'all don't remember that, but he used to fall in the pool like that, and you belly flop. Yeah, but
The camera I think still make bigger splashes.
well, when you think about how you belly flop too, that's because the mass is all concentrated. But if you want to belly flop like that, you're trying to break the surface tension of the water, and you have all that air resistance as you come down, and all that water resistance. You're going to smack into that with your whole body, and you're going to distribute that breaking over every part of you that comes out looking lobster red because you slapped the water. It's never a fun thing.
Painful.
Have you ever seen anybody bounce on the water? Like
Although
when you're
those
water
people
skiing or
want attention.
tubing?
Oh,
I've seen
I've
people
done-
bounce. Like
I've watched
Okay.
the surface tension's so great and the person hits it so fast that they bounce off the water, especially if the water's being churned up and the boat's moving really fast. And you ever seen that? Oh my gosh.
That happened to me when I went
Yeah.
tubing one time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
With Chris and
Especially
Noel.
if you like, if you
London did that.
turn it really tight, they hit the weight. Yeah, people will bounce
I like
across the water.
It was so funny.
Like throwing
Oh yeah,
a
I've
sticky
done that
stone
before.
across.
Like on
It doesn't feel fabulous,
Your legs
Like
but
skipping
it looks cool.
When you're skiing, your legs turn to jello.
I don't
They
do
do?
that well. All right, so
Oh, yeah. Your legs are.
gravity causes objects to accelerate downward, whereas air resistance acts in the direction opposite to the motion and reduces the acceleration. Henry. All right, so when your acceleration is at 0 and you're falling at a constant rate, what is that called?
Terminal velocity.
Terminal velocity. Okay, so if you're on top of the Empire State Building and you drop a penny, all right, it's going to keep accelerating until it reaches a certain point. And then that's going to be its terminal velocity. And it's no longer going to accelerate. It's going to fall at that steady rate.
I mean, it's different for each object because of air resistance.
And yeah, air resistance, mass, all of that, how much surface area the object has. Now, if you drop this off the top of the Empire State Building, it absolutely could kill a person on the sidewalk, a
Yeah.
tiny penny.
Yeah.
Because
It's going
the
so
force, if it smacks you in the head right or hits you in the right place, could punch a hole right in you. It's like firing a bullet, depending on how much mass it is. Especially if you drop something like that steel ball, that has a fair amount of mass
Oh, that
and
would-
very
that
little.
can scale so much. Like
It's
fast.
round, so
That'd go
it's
through
there's
your
not a lot of
skull.
air resistance
It would-
compared to this
it would
flat
go
penny.
through your skull.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Go
Yeah.
through your entire body. Just like land on the sidewalk.
hmm So if you've ever watched skydivers, they accelerate out of the plane and then they kind of reach a
Yeah.
point where they're all kind of going at the same rate, and that's when they do all those cool formations. Have you ever seen how they catch up with each other?
Yeah, they flatten out.
Some flatten out and then others tuck in. Have you seen that? So they're way up high, they dive out of the plane, but they don't dive all at once, right? They come out in a row. So whoever gets out first spreads out, increases his surface area, increases his wind resistance, air resistance, so that he slows down. The guys behind him tuck their arms beside themselves and tuck their heads down like they're doing the skeleton in the
Nice.
Olympics. And they shoot right to him. And it's really cool because they can steer and they shoot right to him. It looks fun until you think about the fact that you've jumped out of a plane.
If you go too far down, then you can't go
I would
back
do it.
up.
Yeah.
Who would do it? Who would
I would.
skydive? Who would do it?
I would do it.
Oh my gosh, almost all of you.
I would 100%.
Really? I'm with y'all.
In a
Only
second.
because
yeah.
I
Yeah.
know someone who skydives.
What'd you do?
I watched Jason do it when, like, sometime in college, and I was like, okay, I'm good. And then a friend
would
of
have
ours
to
went,
do
and
so.
when he went, he witnessed a guy whose chute did not open. Like, that's not, that would be me,
Well, that's
you
why
know?
you always do it with other people. Like, then you
Mhm.
just,
I would- I would
then you
do
grab
it.
onto them.
Was he okay? Did
Like,
he,
Yeah, he went okay. I don't think he was dead, but he went okay.
oh, so he hit the ground?
Oh, yeah. He hit the ground.
That's why you have an emergency parachute.
Well, they were tandem diving and they do have it, but still, it's not as effective by the time you realize it's not coming. And
You can also dive onto another person and hold on. Or,
Like-
they have I think they have ways
let me
to
tell
put
you
their
what,
hands
if
to
we're
shoot.
skydiving and your chute fails and you grab onto me, I'm kicking you off. I love you, but I am not letting you hang on to me while we go down. You're gone.
No, I think they have ways to connect their harnesses to each other.
Be gone.
See ya.
Fuck.
You're a parachute leech.
A lot of
No,
people-
I'm not kidding. I would protect you, Cole. I wouldn't.
But like when you get up
Yeah,
there,
that will be
it's a whole different story. Like just
Yeah,
like,
you
when we're up there, it's like,
Yeah.
You go.
So the last topic we have in this week's notes is projectile motion. All right. So an object falling, the motion of an object falling after it's given initial velocity forward. All right. So when you shoot a bullet out of a gun, it's going to go forward for a while and then it's going to,
For a while.
yeah. Now, depending on what you're firing, like if you're firing your BB gun and you're firing it way out in the yard, you may need to actually aim above the target.
Yeah.
And that's what snipers are really good at because we've got snipers that can, I mean, they got like
I
almost
think the record's like
telescopes
3
to
or
see
4
people.
miles.
What's that guy's name, Cole?
Chris Kyle?
No, there was another guy.
The guy,
Chris
it's like
Kyle.
Vietnamese or something, and he has like 600 confirmed.
The white,
Yeah, and
the
there's
white
a
death.
there's a
Chris Kyle's
U.S.
the-
sniper
I think the
too
biggest
that
in
is
the
like
military.
they're
like 300.
they're all good, but he's insanely good.
I think the
mean,
record is like 660.
yeah, something
No, I
crazy.
think it's
Yeah.
like 3 miles or something.
Yeah, but we're talking about
Confirmed.
way far away. Like way far away, way far away. And they have to consider the air resistance
The wind.
on that round and the wind. So if your target, let's just say it's target practice and not, human enemy combatants, But if you're firing at a target and it's way, 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 I don't know, say it's a quarter mile in the desert and you've got, you know, a good high-powered rifle and you're going to aim at that. And the wind's blowing this way, so you have to aim up and over to impact air resistance. That's
a quarter
wind,
mile in a really high
gravity, huh?
A quarter mile with a really high-powered rifle. You don't really need to aim that
Yeah,
high.
a little bit, not
A
huge.
little bit.
Yeah.
3 miles.
So obviously back in the days
That's
of like firing cannons and muskets, this stuff was super important because
Yeah.
the velocity wasn't as great and you had to fight that. It's coming down, you
I'm
know.
pretty sure they weren't very accurate.
No, they weren't, but still, they didn't quite that. So if you throw a ball,
It just turns it right into.
guys, if you throw a ball, what shape would the path of the
Arc.
ball be? Yeah, it's like a curved arc path, right?
Not
You
me.
throw it, no, you just kind of throw it straight at the ground. All right, now here's something that people often, I wouldn't say often, but there are people that don't pay attention to this, and it's super important. When you see people like celebrating sometimes in like big cities or sometimes other places, it's not so much a thing here, but they shoot up in the air. Is it going to heaven and never coming back? Did the round grow little wings? No, it's just going, it's coming down. And when it comes down, how high did it go?
It goes through the crater. It goes through the.
It goes really, really high, right? So when it comes down, it's going to pick up a lot of velocity. It's
going
not going
higher.
to fall,
It comes down at the same velocity when I put it.
No,
not quite,
it
because
goes
it's
down
propelled. But it's coming down, still coming
that's
down and
It comes
accelerating.
down.
It's not on
Because
terminal
that's it. If you shoot an
velocity.
airsoft gun at 350 feet per second up, it'll slow down. But once it gets to the top, it's going to drop it another 350 feet.
That's probably, yes, but the acceleration is going to be greater on the way up than on the way down.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, but it also depends. You're talking about 350 feet. If you had an actual firearm, it's going up, right? So that's the kind of situation where weird stuff happens and terrible stuff happens. About, I want to say it was 7 or 8 years ago in Atlanta. It was New Year's, and at midnight, people were firing their guns in the air, and some little boy was in church at a
Oh, yeah, it came
midnight
through the
service.
ceiling.
And it came right through the ceiling, and he was sitting next to his mother in the pew, and it went right through him. And he was like 7. He was a little boy. And that you're talking about terminal velocity, that's going to be fast for a round, and it came right through the
What's
ceiling.
the house like 2 miles away or something like that?
They never found out. They
Okay.
kind of could estimate roughly where it may have come from, but they never found out who was
Well, yeah,
responsible. So, I mean, it could have been, I mean,
It
there's
really-
wind, you
It
know.
really could have been any shot.
Mhm.
For that.
Yeah, I mean, it could have. You know, the wind, whichever direction the wind was blowing kind of had some impact, but
God's will.
who knows where it was aimed? Was it aimed this way or that way? I don't know that it's God's will for a child to be shot in church. I think that's kind of terrible. But
Kind of like the opposite.
my point is, yeah, but my point is, if it goes up, it's coming down, right?
Moral of the story: don't shoot guns in the air.
Yeah, don't shoot guns in the air, obviously. So think about an airplane. When you're in an airplane, you're taking that same curved path, correct? But that's a curved path that looks like this. If you're shooting a gun in the air, it's a curved path that looks like this, but it's still a curved path, right? And it may be, for an airplane, it may be, you know, faster here and then slower there. And if it's something that's being fired or projectile, it may be faster here and then slower here, but it's still going to take that curved path. Up, down. If it's going up, it's coming down. So next week we're gonna go into where is that? Next week we're gonna start talking about more mass and acceleration, and it's Newton's first and second laws. Now, you guys are going to want to memorize all 3 of Newton's laws that we're going to be encountering in the next couple weeks. They're super important and they're not hard. And most of them have like handy little things that go with them. Like I bet if I said to you, an object in motion, you could probably finish it. What is it?
An object in motion.
Right, an
stays
object in motion
unless it
tends to
has
stay in
a force.
motion, right? And an object at rest tends to stay at rest unless what?
Unless forces applied to it.
That's pretty much it, unless acted on by an unbalanced force. That is the extent of it, you know? And they will sound familiar to you. So we're gonna wanna memorize those. All right, so that's what you're gonna do for homework, is start on that one. And so you guys have got a little bit of time left, but we're gonna go look at the car. Okay, now,
We do the text.
so Oh yeah, I'll go over the test reviews. Sure. But gonna take you out to the car in a minute. So yeah, Michael wants to review test. We can review test, but I have to take off the sharing
Weekly
because
question.
I don't want to give Kai all the answers.
Test.
Yeah, just gonna tell you what to study for. Now, as these sections and lessons get shorter and shorter, the tests get shorter. There's not as much to study for, right? They should be easier and shorter as we move along through here. So test 7, pull up sometime today. All right, test 7. So you're gonna want to know the definition of a force. Remember when I moved this little truck forward, and then I moved it forward and touched it again when it was moving forward, and then I moved it forward and turned it?
Yeah.
You're gonna want to understand what that means, what that is. Yep, like if somebody wrote that out for you, could you say if it was true or false, or, you know? And you're gonna want to know the unit of measurement for forces. And you're gonna want to know what that is equivalent to. So that might, don't worry about it. So that is something you're probably gonna want to memorize if you're not great at remembering like numbers and units and things like what is that? What?
Just
Sorry.
he stuck
Just
his
let
head
me-
out and just like walked back in.
Henry, he doesn't know what's going on anymore. All right, so you're gonna want to, it's Otto, I don't know. Well, then he doesn't know what's going on either.
He's just looking outside.
I'm gonna give you, will it show me what that is? Show me what that is. I don't remember what the image is. Okay, I'm gonna give you some arrows that represent force, and then I'm gonna give you some pictures of actual activities, and you're gonna have to decide which arrows are represented by which activities. Okay? And
By activities, do you mean simple stuff like pushing a box, or
Could
hard
be.
stuff like diving off a diving board?
could be any of the above.
Uh-oh.
So you're going to want to know what friction is, and you're going to want to also, oh, I just looked at that. Did I look at that twice? Is that on there twice? No. Oh, weird. Okay, I'm going to delete one of these because it doesn't belong.
Aw.
No, it's the same question twice, and that's weird. Don't know why it's there. You're going to also want to understand about terminal velocity and gravity and acceleration and how that works. And you're going to want to talk, going to be able to explain the same stuff we just talked about with the kind of path taken by an object that's some kind of a projectile. Okay? Okay. So now let's talk about the car for a minute. I'm going to delete this one because it doesn't need to be there. Okay, so here's what happens with the car. So what do you remember from last week? Who can explain what the deal was? Michael.
The fan was in the wrong direction. It
Yeah.
was pushing the air a tiny bit towards the engine, but most of it was going that way.
Right, it's kind of
So
going
instead of
outside.
cooling the engine, it was cooling the side of the car.
Yeah,
Radiator.
for no good reason, right?
Pushing heat back into the
Well,
radiator.
hey,
No,
it's
it's not back
cars.
in, but out to the sides. It was kind
Oh
of,
no, you said the radiator thing went.
It's nice and cool.
it was blowing in the direction of
It was
the
trapping
engine.
heat in the radiator. Yeah.
Yes, it was trapping the heat in the radiator. So what we did was, in order to access the fan, we had to remove the radiator. So we had to remove the radiator because the bolts that hold the fan on are about this long, and there is only about this much space between the end of the fan and the radiator. So once we got the bolt undone to here, there was nowhere else to go. So what we did is we took the radiator, we undid all the hoses, we had to drain it, all the fluid in it. What color is the fluid in a radiator most of the time? Does anybody know? Green. It's like a green color, yeah. What's in it? Does anybody know? What's
Water.
in a radiator?
And you said it.
Water and what?
Lime juice.
No,
Something else. I forgot.
it's antifreeze.
Antifreeze.
Antifreeze is ethylene glycol in most cases. I believe it's ethylene glycol in this car.
What did you say? Ethylene Walmart.
Yeah, I did. So you have to drain it out, undo all the hoses, undo the radiator, take it out of the car, which we did, okay? And then you had to unbolt the fan, which Cole did most of.
Yeah.
Turn the fan around, put it back on, bolt it, put everything back together. So last week I held a ribbon, remember? Remember I held the ribbon?
Yeah.
Do you remember what it did?
It went this way and that way.
Kind of flip it around, right? Now the guy said if you put your hand in front of the distributor cap and the air filter, you should feel the air. All right,
Yeah.
so we're gonna go look. I'm gonna say goodbye to Kai,
Bye, guys.
or whoever
Bye, Kai.
else is watching this, and